Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, Wednesday, April 21st, for our monthly public educational meeting here at Los Angeles Norml. Today, we are really honored to have some very exciting guests joining us to share their knowledge and experience as we discuss the future of cannabis. Now that a majority of states are moving towards some sort of legalized adult use, or at the very least medicinal, what will the future of the industry look like and how will it impact consumers? So we're going to be discussing this very topic, everything from consumption lounges and restaurants to drone deliveries, live events, and livable cannabis sanctuaries. So before we get started with our educational portion of our program today, I'd like to recognize the team here at Los Angeles Norml that is responsible for everything that we do. I'd also like to let you know that Los Angeles Norml is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization. So it's important to remember that everyone on the team here is volunteering their time to push forward with the much-needed reform to our cannabis laws here in Los Angeles, California, and at the national level. We would really appreciate your financial support. So please do consider becoming a card-carrying member of Los Angeles Norml for only $4.20 per month. And we're dropping that link in the chat window now. So a quick introduction for who's on the team. Our team consists of the legendary Bruce Margolin, who founded Los Angeles Norml in 1973 and is our director emeritus. Elizabeth Mack, RN, is our director of health and wellness. Hirsch Jane is our Director of Government Affairs. Stephanie Uwe is our Deputy Director of Government Affairs. Brett Macomber is our Director of Technology. Nicholas Castelli is our Director of Communications. Eric Gopel is our Director of Veterans Affairs. Dr. Swathi Varanasi is our Director of Science. Luis Rivera is our Director of Social Equity. Maha Huck is our Director of Education. Calvin Harris is our Director of Strategy and Development. Ryan Barrier is our Deputy Director of Sustainable Energy Solutions. And my name is Ian Rassman, and I'm the Executive Director here at Los Angeles Norml, and truly your very grateful host for today. So now, before we get started, we have a very special message to share with you all from Tommy Chong, where he's going to tell you a little bit about our compassionate care program. So if I can, I'd like to turn the stage over to Tommy. Brett, would you bring Tommy in? And maybe in a moment we'll hear the sound. I don't hear any sound. Anyway, we are really so lucky while we get this. There we go. Thank you, Brett.
Hey, Tommy Chong here with a very important message. Los Angeles Norml is bringing together the licensed cannabis industry, nonprofit partners, and the community to legally give away life-sustaining medicine to people, many who struggle to find affordable, legal medical cannabis. Through these partners, Los Angeles Norml is creating sustainable, compassionate cannabis donations and providing education for the people who need medical cannabis in Southern California. So, help Norml, help people.
I got to tell you, we are truly so honored to count Tommy Chong as one of our supporters. And that really goes back to the decades and decades of cannabis work that's been done by Norml since 1970. This is our 50th year anniversary, everybody. So that's a huge thing. So anyway, let's get our exciting program kicked off today. So I would like to introduce you to our Director of Government Affairs, Hirsch Jane, who's going to be providing some policy updates for us today. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Hirsch. He's the founder of Ananda Strategy, a consultancy serving California cannabis brands and retailers. Hirsch is also the Director of Government Affairs at Caliva, one of the largest vertically integrated cannabis companies in California. Hirsch was previously the West Coast Director of Government Affairs at MedMen, the largest cannabis retailer in the country, overseeing the company's work in California, Arizona, and Nevada. And before working in cannabis, Hirsch was a government affairs manager at Airbnb in San Francisco, helping build the company's global policy team up from 30 to 300 people. Prior to that, Hirsch was an engagement manager at McKinsey and Company in New York City, where he was working in its public sector practice. Hirsch has a BA in philosophy from the UC Berkeley, where he began his cannabis activism by working as the cannabis lead in the campus public defender's office, defending students that were accused of cannabis violations by the university. So he also has a JD from Harvard Law School, where his academic focus was the legal, social, and political impact of the war on drugs. I'm truly honored to introduce our Director of Government Affairs, Hirsch Jain. Hirsch, please take it away.
Thanks, Ian. Hey, everyone. It's it's great to be with you today. What I'm going to be doing is providing, maybe like a 5 to 7 minute policy update on what's going on across the country. Before I do, I just want to note that we're coming up on a consequential 50th anniversary. So it's appropriate that we're having this conversation. We are about to hit the 50th anniversary of Richard Nixon's declaration of a war on drugs, which is really the first time that term was used. So on June 17th, 1971, Richard Nixon officially declared a war on drugs and declared drug abuse to be public enemy #1. And as many of us know, in the ensuing decades, we saw an explosion in the prison population as drugs were criminalized, and we're still dealing with some of the ramifications of that today. So it's fitting, or interesting, I should say, that on the 50th anniversary of a war on drugs, we are now beginning to chip away at the architecture of that war on drugs. And we'll be talking through a little bit what's happening in that regard. So I'm basically going to give two parts to this update. The first is going to focus on what's going on at the state level. I think that's some of the most exciting stuff that's happening with different states legalizing cannabis. And we're going to focus on 4 regions in particular, the Southwest, the Northeast, the South, and then the Midwest. So we'll just kind of talk about what's going on in each of those states and the progress that we're seeing. One of the exciting things is that a lot of Norml chapters are involved in driving that progress. And then the second part of the update will focus on what's going on at the federal level. All of this activity at the state level is driving change at the federal level. And I'm sure a lot of us have been hearing about what the Democrats might do now that they're in charge of the Senate. So we'll talk through that quickly. So pretty easy, just going to go through those two things. So the first is what's going on at the state level. And I think what's exciting is we're seeing in different pockets of the country so much progress being made in terms of the legalization of cannabis and affecting neighbors of states that have legalized cannabis. So we'll start with the Southwest. As many of you know, Arizona last November decided to legalize cannabis by ballot initiative. One of the most exciting things is that in Arizona, we saw the quickest transition from a medical market to an adult use market that we've ever seen. Right? Sometimes it takes 2 or more years after a state legalizes cannabis to set up an infrastructure, but in Arizona, it took just 3 months, and that market is growing really, really rapidly. So that's super exciting. Right to the east of Arizona is New Mexico. As many of you may know, in the past few weeks, New Mexico voted to legalize cannabis, which again, is just another state that has done so and has created this block on the West Coast of legal cannabis states. And then the final thing is that Texas, seeing what's going on with its neighbors, is taking its first steps towards legalization. So the House in Texas is now considering an expansion of their medical program, which right now is super limited and only allows products that have 0.5% THC. But they are going to expand the conditions that are eligible for medical cannabis cards and allow 5% THC products. So still a long ways to go, but that's huge because Texas is obviously such a consequential state. So in the Southwest, we're seeing a ton of activity. In the Northeast, we're seeing a ton of activity. I'm sure many of you have heard about this. New Jersey legalized cannabis by ballot initiative. New York legalized cannabis just a few weeks ago legislatively and put forth what many people think is the most robust social, social equity program out there. So those are 2 huge states, but also now some of their neighbors are starting to move forward. So many people believe that Connecticut and Rhode Island will legalize cannabis later this year. And next year, a lot of people think that Delaware, and New Hampshire might do so as well. So we're seeing a lot of activity in the Northeast. The South, we're seeing activity there too. As many of us know, the South has traditionally been the most resistant to cannabis reform, but Virginia, which is a true Southern state, legalized cannabis earlier this year. And then just today, the governor signed a bill that said that they were going to speed up legalization. And so as of July 1st, it will be legal to possess cannabis in Virginia, which is just unbelievable. Nobody would have thought that even 12 months ago. So that's really exciting. And Virginia is starting to influence, again, some of its neighbors. So Maryland is now seriously thinking about legalizing cannabis and will probably do so next year because of Virginia. And then there are other states, Alabama, that is on the verge of passing a medical cannabis initiative, and Mississippi, as many of us know, voted by ballot initiative last year. So I think the takeaway there is the South, right, traditionally has been the harshest cannabis prohibition region, but that is starting to crumble a little bit. And the final thing I'll highlight is just the Midwest. So in the Midwest, there are markets that have been legalized that are just growing at a rapid rate. So one example is Illinois. In March, Illinois, for the first time in history, collected more taxes from cannabis than alcohol, which is unbelievable and is not bad for an industry that has existed for like 16 months there. So that's really exciting. Today in Michigan, numbers came out that show that that market is growing really rapidly as well. And finally, Minnesota, which is kind of, sort of in the Midwest, they're going to expand their medical program this year. So I know that was a lot of information, but just wanted to highlight all of those states and just sort of communicate that in every pocket of the country, we are starting to see more cannabis legalization. Last thing I'll sort of just go through is what's going on at the federal level, right? So there's all of this activity going on at the state level, but people say that, change comes to Washington, not from Washington. So a lot of this activity at the state level is pushing things ahead forward federally. A couple of things that I just want to highlight real quick. One is the Safe Banking Act. So that just passed in the House yesterday or Monday night, actually. And so as a lot of you know, that's a bill that would allow cannabis companies to work with banks. Many cannabis companies can't work with banks right now. So that would be huge in reducing the cost of capital and just making it safer, right, to work in cannabis because you're not, wheeling around wheelbarrows and duffel bags of cash. So that's exciting. And, that bill probably has enough votes in the Senate. It would need 60 votes in the Senate in order to pass. So that bill has a very good chance of passing this year. And the second thing to note federally is that, safe banking is kind of a narrow bill, but Chuck Schumer, who's now the Senate Majority Leader, is working on what he's calling a broad and more comprehensive legalization bill, right? So that would go farther than just allowing banking, but that would decriminalize cannabis in states across the country. That would likely contain social equity provisions to incentivize states to not only pass cannabis regimes, but include social equity provisions when doing so. And so I think what we're going to see over the next year is an interesting tension between these two things. The Safe Banking Act, the narrow bill that we know that we have the votes for, but doesn't go as far as a lot of us would want. And then this broader bill, which does a lot more of what we want, but it may have a harder time getting to 60 votes in the Senate. And so I don't think anyone has a crystal ball and can say what will happen, but I think it's pretty likely that some combination of these two bills will pass in the next 12 months. And that would just be a huge step forward. Again, as we think about the 50th anniversary of declaring a war on drugs, sort of on that 50th anniversary, we are on the verge of normalizing, the most commonly consumed of those substances and the most benign really, which is cannabis. So that's what's going on at the state and federal level. And I think we have exciting times ahead for the next year or so. So thank you. That's all I got.
Fantastic, Hirsch, as always. Thank you. Some really, really exciting things going on around the country. All right, well, it's 4:20 in California, so it seems like a perfect time to introduce our first guest here. I'm truly honored to be introducing you folks to Keith Stroup. Keith Stroup is an attorney and founder of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And after graduating from the University of Illinois in 1965, he enrolled in Georgetown Law School and worked in the office of Illinois Senator Everett Dixon. I'm sorry about that. He graduated from law school in 1968 and he began working for the Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission. And using a $5,000 in seed money from the Playboy Foundation, Keith founded Norml in 1970. He served as the executive director until 1979, during which time 11 states adopted marijuana decriminalization laws. Keith has also practiced criminal law, lobbied on Capitol Hill for family farmers and for artists, and for several years served as the executive director of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. In 1992, Keith was the recipient of the Richard J. Dennis Drug Peace Award for Outstanding Achievement in the field of drug policy reform, presented by the Drug Policy Foundation in Washington, D.C. And in 1994, Keith resumed his work with Norml, rejoining the board of directors and serving again as the executive director through 2004. And he's currently serving as legal counsel and member of the board with Norml. And Keith has appeared on numerous television shows such as The O'Reilly Factor, Crossfire, Buchanan and Press, Hannity and Combs, Los Angeles Norml a couple times. And I'm truly honored to call this man a friend. And I am absolutely pleased to introduce you to Keith Strop. Keith, thank you so much again for being here and for getting us all started on this mission.
Well, you're very kind indeed. Thank you for inviting me. I will remind you, I think you know this, but personally, but I ended up starting Norml because I was radicalized by the war in Vietnam. And so largely, I was a farm boy. They must have had a quota for one hillbilly at Georgetown the year I applied because I got in. But I was in an environment where I realized the only thing important was to avoid the war in Vietnam. And in the process of that, I got turned on to the importance of public interest law. I ended up avoiding the war because I worked around Ralph Nader on a project called the National Commission on Product Safety. It introduced me to the concept of public interest law. And all it means is you try to use your legal skills and your law degree to impact public policy rather than to just help a few individual clients get rich or avoid criminal charges, depending on what kind of law you're practicing. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I've had a terribly fascinating life, but it was actually all because of a war that my generation hated throughout. I mean, we saw too many of our friends come home in body bags. So the Vietnam War was the most important thing in our lives. And for most of us, we simply wanted to avoid it one way or another. So anyway, because of that, I ended up starting a marijuana lobby. And hey, 55 years later, I'm still smoking and we're finally making some real progress.
We are indeed making some progress. We have so many great guests to bring out. So what I'd like to do now is I'm gonna bring in a few of our board members to introduce the various guests that we have today. And let's see, Eric, I think Eric is not on the call. So is Bruce on the call? Is Bruce here? All right, well, we can skip Eric introducing Bruce then. Stephanie, are you there? No, Stephanie's not there. So let me just jump forward and introduce another great friend of mine, Todd McCormick. Let me get to Todd. Todd, I've known Todd for a minute, about 25 or more years. Anyway, Todd is a former cancer patient who started using cannabis in 1979 under her mother's supervision while undergoing chemotherapy and radiation. Todd overcame the cancer and went on to become a lifetime advocate for medical cannabis. In 1984, Todd started cultivating cannabis and has never stopped. Starting in 1994, Todd worked with Jack Herrera as an editor of The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and after Jack's passing, he released the 12th edition of the book with memorials to Jack. Through his company, Authentic Genetics, Todd provides the unique genetics that span his more than 35 years of experience and breeding selection. His collection preserves what he calls the primary colors of cannabis, where you will find Original Skunk #1, Northern Lights #5, OG Kush, and many others. Todd, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Ian. And hi, Keith. It's really an honor to be here. Happy 420, brother.
Nice to see you, friend.
Super nice to see you. You know, for those that don't know, actually, I kind of got radicalized at Washington, D.C.'s Norml office back in November of '94 when we were having what was called National Medical Marijuana Day. And we were protesting in front of the White House in Peace Park. And I was, you know, everybody there was saying, you know, don't smoke cannabis. We can't get you out of jail. The Capitol Police are horrible. Please be cool. And then I was there with a grower who's unfortunately now deceased, Richard Davis, and we had grown cannabis that summer. So we were there to give away cannabis to people who wanted to protest. And that's when I became friends with Keith, because turns out a little more radical than he lets himself out to be. But we thought change was around the corner back then. The National Federation of Scientists had put a position paper out about what they called whole raw cannabis. And, you know, I just think the enthusiasm was so high, and it's hard for me to believe that it's like 27 years later, huh, Keith? or so that here we are, and we've made great gains, but this has not been an easy battle. And, you know, the battle is far from over, and this positive conflict that's created with state initiatives passing is absolutely wonderful. And it breaks my heart to see people resisting legalization and asking for decriminalization, because if I could remind everybody listening that decriminalization only takes away the offense for the end user. For the grower, the distributor, or, you know, dealer, as we used to call them, they're still criminals. And in order for people to get clean cannabis from a reliable source, the production has to be legal as well as their end use of the cannabis. So decriminalization is a horrible, horrible policy that we should resist all the way until we get our real liberty. And for people listening, there's a section in the Controlled Substances Act. It's just 903. It's one sentence, really. I think it is, Keith, right? It's like one long sentence, but it creates the positive conflict between states and federal. And the only reason the feds aren't coming in and raiding us all now is because of this positive conflict the initiatives created. And we really need to support reform on a federal level. States that do not have initiative processes at their disposal should have the ability to change these laws and reflect those in other states so they can benefit from the, you know, the taxation benefits that it comes from taxing us instead of policing us. You know, if anybody's watching this, go punch in 502data.com and you'll see over $7 billion in cannabis has traded hands in Washington state alone with no arrests. And this could be the future for almost every state. And, you know, I like to...
Todd, let me raise one thing. I totally agree with you that until recently, we felt like we were in the golden years when we could work in states where they had a voter initiative because you had the ability to draft it the way you wanted it. Whereas if you have to go through a state legislature, you got to compromise. You figure you're going to end up with something that's not as good. Now, did you notice what New York just did?
It's incredible.
They don't just allow smoking and personal cultivation for personal use. They're going to have licenses for smoking lounges. They're going to have licenses for delivery services. And you are, as of, I think, July 1st or whenever it kicks in, you are allowed to smoke marijuana in New York, any place where you are allowed to smoke a cigarette. So I'm telling you, that all came about through the legislature. And I think what we will see is over the next 3, 4, 5 years, the newer states that join the list of states that are reforming will see that it's working well in New York. And so I think we will end up getting more New York style laws. The first few were treated marijuana like it was a toxic substance. You know, if it's as if you know, you couldn't get within 100 feet of a schoolhouse or 1,000 yards or something. Why, what's a marijuana going to cause those kids to go crazy? You know, it's free for madness.
You know, I completely agree with you. And New York is going to set a new precedent with states like Rhode Island so closely nestled to states like Massachusetts,
and Connecticut is about to do it.
And you can't forget New York's importance in the financial world, right?
So
we hope that we're going to see some pressure from New York to push forward safe banking, which is honestly going to be the biggest domino to fall in all of this, in my humble opinion. Once the business has access to banking, things are going to change. If I can just pause the conversation really quick, we have so many fantastic guests and I want to get them on camera here so that they can talk with you. We got super talent waiting in the wings and they need to talk to you, Todd, and they need to talk to you, Keith. So Lewis, go ahead and please introduce our next guest, if you would.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, the conversation's going great. So we just want to bring in our next guest, Chris Deliolio. He is the CEO and co-founder of WebJoint. He's a great guy. I've been able to work with him, really a strong supporter of social equity, which we are here in LA Norml as well. So thank you. He's done a lot of great work at a young age. He's built an all-in-one cannabis software delivery service and brands, platform software. He's also had 8 years in experience here developing online marketing. He has utilized his skill set to create a team to continue to innovate this new and rapid growing cannabis industry. His efforts have helped grow his team to over 20 employees and raise over $3 million in venture capital. Great job, Chris. And with the ultimate goal of achieving, connecting all the cannabis brands to consumers. So with that, Chris, please go ahead and jump on in and share a little bit of how far we've come.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Louis. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm excited to be here today. Thanks, Ian, for also inviting me. Definitely appreciate it. Yeah, I see a lot happening for the future of cannabis for sure, especially with, my perspective and seeing things on the software side, especially in delivery. We placed our bet on delivery back in 2014 because we thought it was the future. And even though COVID has expedited a lot of what we, foreseen, there's still a lot that needs to be done, and there's still a lot that's going to happen. And I think that delivery is huge because our industry is essentially showing a new way of delivering product in every industry. We have what's called the ice cream truck or kit model, where they're storing inventory in the vehicles. And when you have software that can properly, track and handle that operation, we've seen average delivery times of 24 minutes. And I've even personally got deliveries from my own clients within 5 minutes. Can you ever imagine in any other industry where you order like on DoorDash or Uber Eats, you actually place an order for something and you get it within a couple minutes? So that's the ability. That's what we have the ability to change, is really, showcase this new style of delivery across a wide array of industries. But then also, breaking into, the whole direct to consumer and giving marketers and putting it into their hands. Because as far as pushing this out to more consumers, it's obviously been important for dispensaries and brands to have real estate in dispensaries. It's why you see brands buy out shelf space when you walk into your favorite dispensary, 9 times out of 10. It's kind of how it works, right? We're essentially doing that, but for the digital era, allowing anybody to have their own digital menu that's connected to these retailers. You could spin up thousands and thousands of those. Obviously, it'd be the same licensed retailers that be fulfilling those delivery orders, but it gives much more opportunity to those who can get different ways of kind of showcasing the products in front of different consumers' eyes, whether it's a niche marketplace for women, whether it's a niche marketplace for like the older consumer or the newer consumer who may not know too much about the product. There's opportunities to create niche marketplaces for the connoisseur. So, that's what's going to be interesting is how these states kind of implement delivery moving forward. From what we've even seen in California, even though the delivery's always been a thing here, nobody really knew if it was going to be a thing post legalization and actually having infrastructure for delivery. And even after we got the infrastructure, how long it took for deliveries, a couple of deliveries, to really become that enterprise level that can compete with the MedMens and Harborsides of the world. So, I think that's going to be, interesting watching that evolve over time. Which is why we're focused on moving into other states like Massachusetts, Michigan, Nevada, and we're going to continue to see that strive there. I'm actually in Newcastle, Delaware right now with a family out here, and I'm going to be heading up to New Jersey to meet some of my connections out there. Leo Bridgewater being one of them, and really just trying to understand how to make the right moves in these new states opening up, so we can continue to see that momentum grow. But I think that's going to be huge as far as talking from my delivery perspective. But I definitely appreciate everything that everyone else has brought to the table here, and look forward to seeing what other gems are dropped.
Aha, would you be so kind as to bring in a few more guests for us?
Let's do it. All right. So I'll be introducing first Sean Crittel. He is the CEO and president of Pineapple Inc. and is based in Los Angeles. Through their operating subsidiary, Pineapple Express Consulting, they provide capital to cannabis business clientele, lease real properties to those businesses, and provide consulting and technology to develop, enhance, and expand existing and newly formed infrastructures. They also intend to create a nationally branded chain of cannabis retail stores under the Pineapple Express name, which they intend to be supported by company-owned cultivation and processing facilities, and will feature products from company-owned manufacturers. I would also like to introduce Jamie Pearson. She is in the same screen as Sean. So Jamie is president and CEO of Bang Inc., a second-generation cannabis executive. She has decades of experience in global operations, deal structuring, and negotiation as a former multinational real estate professional. She's fluent in German and English. Jamie is responsible for Bang's capital markets initiatives, national and international expansion, and overall corporate management. She leads the company's diverse executive team in the development and execution of Bank's strategic plan. She is a graduate of Vassar College and University of Oregon and was selected as a High Times Female 50 honoree. Jamie believes the cannabis industry should be positively disruptive to the very framework of business and encourages her colleagues to share access, to reject the plant stigma, and to promote cannabis for wellness and for our communities. So welcome, welcome Sean, and welcome Jamie. Happy to have you here.
So yeah, we're going to just continue with introductions, bring up a couple more, and then we will continue our show. So I get the pleasure of introducing a dear friend of mine, Tracy Ryan. Tracy is the founder of the 501c3 charity SavingSophie.org and CannaKids, now called CK Soul, California medical cannabis brand, and also the co-founder of NCore, Tracy's new research and therapeutic focused immunotherapy company. After her infant daughter Sophie's brain tumor diagnosis in 2013, Tracy has dedicated her life to helping patients who suffer from life-altering ailments. In 2018, Tracy partnered with the world-renowned cancer immunology research scientist, Dr. Anahid Jewett, to do clinical trials on her own daughter. Now, 2 years later, Tracy and her team have licensed a suite of patents from Dr. Jewett's portfolio from UCLA. They are currently working on getting their non-toxic supercharged natural killer cell therapeutics for cancer into human trials, while also building their exciting cancer diagnostic and research center. So help me welcome Tracy Ryan.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Okay.
All right, so moving on. Now I have the New Yorker on the panel here, Brittany Carbone. Brittany is the founder and CEO of Tonic CBD and co-founder of Tricola Farms and Bardo Labs, which collectively form a fully integrated, quality-driven craft hemp supply chain based in New York and Pennsylvania. From Tonic's monthly giving initiative and Bardo's social equity program to Tricola Farms' commitment to regenerative agriculture, Carbone is leading the way for a more sustainable and equitable cannabis industry that operates with integrity and compassion. Welcome, Brittany. Congrats on the legalization too. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very exciting time to be in New York for sure.
Yeah, hell yeah. And then I got Max Hansen, Mr. Max Hansen. Max Hansen is a hiring process strategist who partners with CEOs, presidents, and other executive hiring managers to grow their businesses by hiring A-plus players. After spending nearly 2 decades successfully hiring tens of thousands of leaders in almost every industry, Max's true compassion, including cannabis, Max's true compassion is up-leveling everyone's hiring game with purpose, now with a specific focus in the cannabis space. Have you read his bestseller, Hiring on Purpose, yet? He's got a book out, folks. And welcome, Max. Welcome to the board.
Thanks for having us. And thanks for introducing us to LA Norml, me and my firm. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, our pleasure, man. Our pleasure. Yeah, so we can kick it off, man. This is everybody, yeah? Ian, you want to start it off with what's going on?
There we go, unmuted. Okay, fantastic. So let me just start off with an easy question here. Keith, let me go to you for this one. The question is, how far since decriminalization has started, how far have we come and what more needs to be done? I can't imagine anyone better to answer that question than you. Then you're muted. You got to unmute yourself there, Keith.
Thank you. The year we founded Norml, Gallup had just done their first polling question asking how many Americans support legalization. And it was only 12%. 88% of the country were opposed to what we were trying to do. We had 2 polls just in the last week, but there have been 4 or 5 over the last month, where we show between 65 and 70%, 2 out of 3 Americans now support the full legalization of marijuana, even though roughly 14% of the adult population are current users. I think when we started, we probably thought that we could only get the support of people who had tried to smoke marijuana and enjoyed it or whatever. Well, it turns out that's not it at all. we now have won the hearts and minds of a majority of the American public, including the non-smokers. They've realized that prohibition causes far more harm than the use of the marijuana itself. So because of that, I think the sky's the limit. We only continue to win from here on out, and more rapidly. We'll have, instead of 4 or 5 states next year, we'll have 6 or 8 states next year. But it is breathtaking to see the progress we're making.
I want to jump down over there to Sean and Jamie. How about you guys? Do you have any thoughts on that? On where we're going with this in the future?
Well, first of all, we were saying that we're sitting here because of Keith. And so first of all, I want to say thank you to Keith.
You're very kind.
Starting Norml.
I wouldn't even have this job right now if it wasn't for you, sir. So
you're very kind.
I got this Pioneer Award a couple of years ago. I think I should just ship it to you. Just cross me out, and I think that's more, you know, deservable. But yeah, it's funny because Jamie doesn't have a home right now because she's traveling. So we had a meeting prior to this, so we just figured we tag team this together. That just shows kind of the culture of this industry, right? You know, you don't typically have those things in regular corporate America, but I don't know. I think you see it happening faster.
Well, I think New York is a huge tipping point. I think once the federal government saw New York go recreational and that gigantic Northeast population, it's a wrap. I think it's going to be, the dominoes are going to fall in a really, really rapid succession. And we see with the Safe Banking Act passing the House, I think it's just a matter of time. Once there's banking, and now New York has gone rec, it's just a matter of time.
And the other federal bill that I think has a fair chance of passing this year is called the MORE Act, where marijuana would be totally removed from the Controlled Substances Act. So tobacco's not there, alcohol's not there. So that's what we need to have, is the MORE Act.
Absolutely. I think Ian, you touched on a point. I don't know in terms of for sure it's going to help federal legalization, but safe banking, I think definitely is going to get a catapult from New York. It's kind of undeniable. And again, so much money there. It's like our financial epicenter of the country. So I think that it's just going to be undeniable as countries keep knocking on the door. And right now we have a majority leader. The only thing that I do, and I was just telling Jamie too, the only thing with Biden kind of backstepping and pausing a little bit, I think that does have me a little bit worried.
By the way, I would agree with that. And I think it's generational. Remember, Biden was a guy who wholeheartedly supported mandatory prison sentences for nonviolent drug offenders. He was really part of he was a drug warrior. Now, he's changed a lot. I give him credit, but I don't think he understands the difference between decriminalization and legalization. He keeps talking about, he wants it lowered to a lower schedule. Well, that won't do a goddamn thing.
It won't do anything.
What makes me feel good is that Kamala Harris was our chief sponsor in the Senate last year for the MORE Act. So right. I think she'll protect our position despite Joe's being a little too old to understand it.
I believe so.
I
My
agree.
only fear is if there's any indication of us, of handing it back over to the Republicans in 4 years, Biden's got to get it done now.
Oh, yeah.
It has to get done during this administration. I applaud also Cory Booker for calling him out as well. It needs to get done.
Well, I can't underestimate the effect that the BLM movement in the last 12 months has had on politics. And realistically, cannabis prohibition is systemically racist, and we can't forget that. And all of these people, I live in California, Northern California, and I lost a lot of friends with Prop 64 because, believe it or not, a lot of self-interest people resisted legalization because they seem to forget that their profits are far less important than the civil liberties of people of color who have been getting their face thrown into the dirt for a pocket full of flowers for decades. And it's something that truly bothers me because the resistance to real legalization, which means that you can grow your own pot and not get busted by a cop if you've caught smoking it, and you don't need a doctor's note to get away with it, you have a legal fundamental right to it, is much different And there's not as much profit involved for the people that want to make money. And I think that that has to be set aside, where all this excitement about the new industry is great, but realistically, we got to keep our eye on the true goal, and that was just to get our rights back.
Well, that was why the New York law was so groundbreaking, because it has all of that home grow, consumption lounge, social equity, and then money going back to the communities that have been negatively impacted. I think New York, you got to give Happy Monkey credit for, getting that through, because a Happy Monkey, those guys were, putting that petition together and put a lot of pressure on Cuomo's office, and they got it done. So, I give kudos to Vlad and Ramon and those guys, because they really put the pressure on.
And Cuomo's scandal. He wanted to divert some attention.
We would not have gotten that bill passed if it was not for his scandal. It was
1,000%.
For sure.
Would not have happened.
The timing.
One thing that was added into that law that is great is home growing rights. And unfortunately, there are companies like MedMen that lobbied against that because it disrupts their business model. And I think that that's something we should all be aware of and resist, because that our right to grow our own cannabis is very much like independence. And this is what people really need, the right to grow a flower. As crazy as that sounds out loud to say, but really we can't forget that, in my opinion, is what we're truly fighting for, even if it complicates the profits of a lot of very eager people.
There's a big fight in Delaware right now over that very issue, where the existing medical cannabis dispensary license holders are fighting against opening the market up and issuing a lot of new licenses, which obviously would favor patients and recreational smokers and everyone else. So yeah, I think you're right. We will need to try to demand reasonably unlimited numbers of retail and wholesale licenses. Otherwise, you end up with monopolies, and they're controlled by friends of the legislature.
I completely agree.
Speaking of for the patients, and then also ushering in the clinician standpoint, as our resident clinician here at LA Norml, and going to Joe's point, and what he wants is more research, right? So with that, I would love to pivot back to Tracy Ryan, my friend, and hear what you're working on at NCORE and how you're bringing clinical trials with cannabinoids to the 22nd century almost.
Yeah. There's so many different factors that are going to be so crucial in legalization. But for me, my main focus and my work with DC is going to be the research. We have now completed a patient study of 17 patients, where we really had to work around this Schedule I regulatory hurdle, which is very difficult to bring cannabis into an actual lab like our lab at UCLA. It's very, very challenging. So I call myself the kind of person that figures out how to drive around the potholes of life. And we studied the blood of the patients consuming cannabis and looked at their natural killer cell function. That way we didn't have to worry about this Schedule I situation. And we made discoveries that we feel are really going to help change the narrative in DC once they are published, which we are going to a Tier 1 journal for. We're not going to a Tier 2 or a Tier 3 or one of these lower journals that people don't really take seriously. We're going to the top of the top. And we're in the final review process as we speak. And what we have found, not only in these 17 patients, but also the research that we then reverse engineered into humanized mice, is that cannabis has the ability to attack and kill cancer stem cells, which are the seeds to cancer from which cancer grows and thrives and gives rise. Chemo and radiation cannot even see these cells. We also discovered that cannabis is turning the natural killer cell system back on, which is my scientist's 30-year field of focus. She discovered the natural killer cell system and its function. She built the field and is the world leader in the field. And it is when these cells fail that your body is then able to, those cancer stem cells that we all have inside of us now are able to then mutate and become actual cancer. So when you have cancer, you don't have a good functioning NK cell system. Cannabis is turning that cell system back on. That's why we're seeing all these patients thrive. And our theory is that the reason some patients don't live, now this isn't proven science, this part of it isn't, this is just a theory, but our theory is that the patients that start cannabis who have cancer, traditionally it's one of the last lines of defense, their body is already so diseased and riddled by toxicity that they have no natural killer cell function to turn back on, because we're physically seeing patients go home, not on therapy, use cannabis only, and live and thrive and continue to live and thrive cancer-free as long as they continue taking this medicine. So I've been working very closely with DC, with Congressman Eric Swalwell, who just helped pass and co-sponsored the safe banking bill. I have a direct line to Biden, whose son died of brain cancer. My daughter was born with brain cancer. We are going to be working our way towards human trials in glioblastoma this year. And I'm hoping with this research and the work that we're doing through the natural killer cell system, that we're going to be able to show him what this plant can really, truly do in the human body and help convince him once and for all that this is so much more than what he's been raised and taught on. This plant that can cause addiction, which we all know is very, very difficult to become addicted to, and that doesn't have medical value according to the FDA, which we all know to be a complete and total lie. So that's my path forward. And again, thank you to the gentleman who paved this way before me. My first introduction to the LA cannabis industry was Todd, when I built his website for the THC Expo for downtown LA. Todd, I don't know if you remember that or not, or if you've connected those dots, but that was my agency that did that with you. So thank you for the introduction into the world.
To be honest, I was sitting here watching you talk and I was thinking, wow, why does this seem so familiar? And it hit me when you said that like a ton of bricks. And it's beautiful that you got in the cannabis industry. I mean, my whole goal, and everyone I've ever talked to, is not to try to talk at them, but to listen to what they do and try to connect what they do to cannabis, because then I think maybe it'll light the fire that causes them to run off. And you're a great example of that. And now that you're infused cannabis into your life, and it's a little better with cannabis, you must say. And yeah.
Child and the thousands of patients that we've worked with all around the world. I always say, if people could jump into my head for 5 minutes and see what I've seen and know what I've known from a medical standpoint, and how many patients it can benefit from the smallest condition to the most life-threatening, we would not be having this legal battle with these politicians who are trying to play doctor.
I'd like to make one little point that I was going to make before we were introducing everybody, and it's that in the time since I met Keith and when we did the National Medical Marijuana Day, we've discovered our endocannabinoid system that only happened between 93 and 95. Really, they came to the realization that it was significant, and all of this research and how it controls our own ability to do basically everything, function, is connected to it, is incredible. And right now I'm working on a book called From Cancer to Cannabis, The Essential Guide to the Endocannabinoid System, because our dear friend and founding member of Norml, if I'm not wrong, Keith, right, Dr. Lester Grinspoon, before he passed away, gave me this really beautiful piece called Caniopathic Medicine, because he makes the argument that not only will cannabis need to be acknowledged by the medical system, that it'll have to have basically its own little branch, because the endocannabinoid system is only manipulated or aided by these phytocannabinoids from cannabis. And it's an incredible point that because he points to, we have a whole, basically it's amazing. And I think Dr. Lester Grinspoon really is on the right path, because the way that we're discovering that it controls so many things is incredible. And I wrote a paper about using hemp seed oil as a solvent and phytocannabinoids, which I really think you should read, because it's all the research I've been doing. I've been coming to the realization that decarboxylating it or getting high, like I'm sitting here doing with this joint, it sometimes gets in our way of using enough of these phytocannabinoids to truly balance our endocannabinoid system and cause like the anti-inflammation effects that we need them to do, and moderate other diseases. So I would really look at using non-decarboxylated THC and other carbolic acids, because then you can ingest really large amounts of them without it getting in your way, like, being able to give it to a child who's having seizures, for instance, and them not like getting high and staring at their pencil, but being able to participate in a healthy way should be our goal of endocannabinoid medicine. And, I point out jokingly that every, cop and prosecutor, judge and jailer, and Keith knows there's been a lot of them who have locked me up, they all have an endocannabinoid system. And at some point in their life, they're going to discover that they need phytocannabinoids and cannabinoids to balance their body. And I love the work you're doing now, and it's really great to see you on this call.
I couldn't agree with you more about the acids. If people had seen what kind of success we have had with the autism community, specifically with THCA, it is absolutely revolutionary. So I would love to connect with you and read the work that you're working on right now and learn more.
Yeah,
I could be a lame plug for a minute and just say, go to my website, agseedco.com, scroll down to the book cover that says From Cancer to Cannabis with the pot leaf, and it's that article. And I think it's really important for everybody listening. Realistically, hemp seed oil is something you should also have in your life. There's so much to say about this plant, but that combination, I think, is magical. 20-something years ago, I was being prosecuted and I was staring at my Marinol bottle, and I thought, wow, a synthetic molecule suspended in sesame oil. And I was using an AB epoxy that same day. And I thought, what if Mother Nature gave me the AB epoxy? So I put some hemp seed oil in a frying pan and put some resin powder, which is just sieved resin glands from the flowers, into the pan, heated it up and put it on a muffin, and I got really, really high. So then I started experimenting with putting it in the refrigerator in a mason jar and letting the hemp seed oil dissolve the resin. You'd be blown away, Keith. In about 7 to 10 days, you can pour the hemp seed oil through a strainer, and that hemp seed oil is now infused with phytocannabinoids and terpenes that are not decarboxylated and are completely full spectrum. And together with the balance of the hemp seed oil's essential fatty acids, you almost have, nature's perfect medicine.
Need to add.
I put a request in the chat. Would you put a link to that article in the chat, please?
I will.
Great.
Sorry to be long-winded. I get enthusiastic about the subject.
No, great stuff, Todd. Yeah, appreciate it.
We're here for your knowledge, man.
Absolutely.
Let's hear what the New Yorker has to say about cannabis, the industry, and what's going on over there, and what what does Brittany see as the future, and what's going on, and what are you excited about over there?
I think we touched on it before. The home grows, the consumption spaces, those are all really great parts of it. But I think the social equity component of New York's bill is amazing, and it just really speaks to all the hard work that everybody did. All the organizations throughout New York that were up in Albany and really fighting, and just kind of like we said before, the timing worked out perfectly with Cuomo kind of had his back against the wall. But I think that it's really going to be the tipping point for a lot of other states, like we were saying, because now it's done, but it's also where the real work starts now is actually making sure that everything regulation actually kind of meets the legislation, and when the rubber hits the road, that everything rolls out as it's stated in the bill. And as we all know, in this industry, things can change in a second, and they can just rework things into the law. So now we're fighting to just make sure that doesn't happen. But I think that there's really a lot of great opportunity that's baked into the New York bill, and I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of how the social equity component really kind of plays out, but also how the micro businesses and how the fact that they are including disadvantaged farmers as part of like the social equity component is really cool as well. In New York specifically, I'm sitting here in upstate New York. This area has been decimated by big ag, and it's just really heartbreaking in this area. Especially IBM used to be headquartered not too far from here in Binghamton. Once they closed down, it really tore that city down. So there's so much that's needed here, and New York has failed New Yorkers and New York farmers big time when it came to hemp. We are actually kind of living proof of that. New York really just closed down processing licenses and stuff like that, except for like Canopy Growth and other really big companies that were in the politicians' pockets and everything. And those are the ones that are now getting automatically grandfathered into THC processing and everything like that. So you're already kind of seeing kind of where we went wrong and where we were led astray when we were told that the New York hemp program was built to help farmers and revitalize the agricultural industry. So hoping that we're going to do better with cannabis. I really think that we are. I think we're on a really good path, and I think that as the market develops and everything like that, I think what you guys are talking about with THCA and like just really understanding these different cannabinoids and understanding more specifically how to combine them in the most effective way. I think that that's like kind of really kind of marrying CBD and THC in a meaningful way, and all the other cannabinoids that can really have a huge impact. Like we're still just on like the tip of the iceberg as far as like really understanding how to effectively make basically predictable full spectrum extracts, right? Like that's like the downfall of just a pure full spectrum. Sometimes if you're trying to treat something super specific and targeted, you need consistency, you need something that's kind of standardized, right? But you might not want an isolate. So I think that as this gets normalized more and more, and access and research becomes better, that's what we're going to start to see. That's what I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, I'm just really actually looking forward to, the fact that I was in Manhattan yesterday, I'm just smoking a joint on the street, which I usually do anyway, but now I'm not looking over my shoulder whatsoever. So it's a good day. It was a good 420. And yeah, it's just a really exciting time. Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah. Hey, Max, so how about you, man? What's up on your side of the industry there? I know you're doing a lot of hiring. I know there's some brands here. There's some, CEOs on the panel. I mean, maybe they want to tell us about your side.
Yeah, so we started Y Scouts in 2012 as the first purpose-based leadership search firm on the planet. So we've got a proven process to really hire purpose-aligned and performance-proven leaders, and we've taken that aim to the cannabis industry. We think that everything that you guys are talking about, there's tons of reasons to have purpose and meaning, and tons of reasons to bring really smart executives and leaders from other industries into this industry. And we've done that. We've got a pretty good portfolio of companies that we've built over the last 4 years, and we feel like we're just getting started. So you guys are a bunch of badasses, and I'm just happy to be on here with you.
Well, thank you. On behalf of all of us, I guess. Thank you.
We do have a seriously amazing panel here. If we have any of our panelists, I know when you mute yourself, you can't unmute yourself again. So please just wave around frantically, and our master puppet master there will unmute you. I would definitely like to bring back in our panel for really any final thoughts on what the future of cannabis is looking like, or maybe something great happened to you yesterday and you got a little story about 420. Like to hear from some of our panelists. Sean, I know you did some exciting stuff yesterday. Come on now. Oh, and there he goes. Oh, he's back. Okay.
Well, yeah. I saw you, right? So,
yeah, that was hardly the exciting point of your day, though. Come on now.
I will say on in terms of the industry, not only we're focused on federalization, safe banking, but also education along with telemedicine. That's going to be big time this year. I sit on the advisory council for Benzinga. That's pretty much the focus of this year. Education, breaking stigmas, and telemedicine, especially for folks understanding that, it's not about really, especially for people who have specific ailments, that it's not really about getting high. It's about getting to that root cause of your pain, pain management. And again, Todd brought up a good point. The more you understand the endocannabinoid system, the better you can treat a patient. So, we're bringing on a chief medical officer starting in July, who can take these 15-minute consultations to say, this is what, because it's just not about smoking and that's it. Some people can ingest certain ways. Some people don't do well with edibles or vapes or something of the like. And if you have deep underlying issues, RSOs, FSOs, people don't even know about these types of things to use instead of just picking up a joint and smoking. So we've learned at Pineapple, the more you can educate that person, the better off you can fight that ailment. And obviously you'll have a customer for life, potentially. So we're really focused on that education, driving education, and actually treating this like a medicine that it is, to just like any other medicine. You can't take, some people can't take Motrin, Motrin. Some people can't take, some of these drugs by pill form. They have to take them intravenously or whatever the case may be. Maybe they build a tolerance. So it's the same thing, dosage, microdosing cannabis, or again, hitting with high concentrates like RSOs and FSOs to help them live a better life, happier life. Yeah.
Fantastic. Jamie, any thoughts on the future of cannabis? I want to go around to all of our guests here, and I'd like you to just give us your closing thoughts on the future of cannabis and where we're going. Jamie.
Thanks, Ian. And sorry I missed you yesterday. I actually called it. It was a long day, so I didn't make it out in the evening events.
We'll meet up. You got started too soon.
Yeah, for sure. What we're doing at Bang, because we're in 9 states in Canada, and we've got international presence in Europe with our CBD products. We're really parallel processing, having a supply chain that can meet demand today, but also understanding that federal legalization is coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I don't think that Congress is going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle. So the reality is they're going to get addicted to those tax dollars, and that's a good thing for the people of the world. And then on top of that, the few more things I want to say. One is I think that Ralph Mishalem should definitely win the Nobel Peace Prize, and I would like to see some people talking about getting him nominated. And I will probably see him in Berlin this July. I'm speaking at a conference there. And then the last thing is, when we're talking about the future of cannabis, we are in prohibition right now. It means that we can make the industry look any way we want. And what I would like to see is the 40,000 Black and brown people that are sitting in prison right now for possession of cannabis get out of jail and be able to be with their families and be productive members of society. And let's stop our prison for profit system. And I think we're headed in the right direction, but I think cannabis, it's incumbent upon us in the industry to remember that we built this industry on their backs, and to invite them in and to be very cognizant of the fact that we can't do this without that 1,000% part of what we're doing.
And I'll piggyback off of that. You weren't there last night, but Ian, I believe, I don't know if you've met, he was in my cabana, the gentleman that he was released from a life sentence for cannabis after serving 90 days. I mean, talk about your life is over. I think he's 22 or something like this. No other issues in terms of the law except for cannabis. And this man was made an example of, and it has gotten out. So it was, that was heartfelt yesterday. So there you go, Ian. That was the biggest takeaway from last night. It was that. It was definitely that. To hug him and he's home, that was an amazing thing. So we're actually going to do some work with him and help him however we can at Pineapple, and maybe bring him into the family.
So important, Sean. And I know, Todd, you've got plenty of experience with being on the wrong end of these people that don't appreciate the flower.
Well, yeah, it's funny, Keith.
And being made an example of. We talk about being made an example of. Todd was a huge example here in California.
Unfortunately, what's crazy is, after I got out of Keith was a great support mechanism for me. Well, I did 5 years in federal prison. I was one of the first people the feds arrested after we passed 215, which was kind of a crappy law. But since I got out of prison, Keith, I've been actually raided 3 more times and prosecuted 3 more times by the state because I never cooperate. And my last time was with Tony Serra, because I love Tony, and it was a great time to be prosecuted with Tony. But for 5 years in Oakland, they prosecuted me for cultivation while they quadrupled the amount of clubs. The hypocrisy couldn't have been better. And I had, at the time, 3 felonies for cultivating, Keith, and then they passed 64, and 2 of them dropped. And now if the MORE Act passes, I'll have no felonies. I'll go from being a 3-strike to no strikes just because the law has changed that much, And I thank you so much. I mean, I can't even count the amount of collect calls you have taken from me over the years, and I love you for every single one of them, and I thank you so much.
Those were strange.
It was worth it.
When we couldn't keep you out of prison, that felt very strange. But you were
sorry.
a brave defendant.
Yeah, we made a point, and you know what? It's been beautiful since, and I have a seed company now, and I'll send you free seeds for life, of course. And it's beautiful, and I'm proud of where we've come, and we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for people like you. And it's weird. I just got in the mail, and only you'd get this, a picture of Hef and Joni, and in the mail, and I love you so much for so many things, and it's really an honor to be here still, and I'm so proud of what you've accomplished in all these years. And we celebrate a lot of people, Keith, in this country for a lot of stupid reasons, and people like you who have made such a huge difference in society that go kind of unnoticed. Really, I love Ralphie Mishalem. He's a great man, but Keith has made a change in this country that can't be understated. And I thank you for it.
You're very kind, Todd. Thank you.
Oh, I mean it.
I'm actually the world's oldest marijuana smoker, is what I'm
How old's Willie?
Well, Willie's got about 8 years on me, so you're right. I'm not the oldest.
Go ahead, Keith. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you think of the future?
Well, I sound like a juvenile optimist or something, but I really do feel like, having seen this issue during some periods where the movement was incredibly slow, and you had to have a microscope to even notice an inch movement. During the 70s, when 11 states stopped arresting marijuana smokers, well, that was, you know, that was a big step forward because 90% of the arrests were for smokers. But we didn't anticipate that we'd then go 18 years without another statewide victory. After those 11 states, the country turned more conservative. You had a Ronald Reagan and parents groups and Just Say No. And so until California surfaced in 96 with medical use, we hadn't won a statewide victory for 18 years. So now to see the momentum that we picked up since then, it really does feel exhilarating and fulfilling. I knew marijuana was going to be legal, but I wasn't sure I'd live long enough to experience it, and I actually have. So it's wonderful.
You told me a few years ago, Keith, you said your thought back in 1970 that this would probably take 5 to 10 years to knock out some full federal legalization. And so what do you think now, Keith?
Well, I was only about 4 decades off. You know, I don't know if I really was that idealistic or naive. I think a lot of it may be I didn't want it to sound impossible or implausible. Otherwise, how do you get people to support you and to become part of the issue? So in some ways, I was trying to sell it, hoping it was going to happen quickly. But I doubt that I really believed 10 years even then.
That was a great answer anyway, because, you know, you follow that up with, you know, we were this is a few years ago, and of course, California had already legalized, and you followed it up with, yeah, I think we're still probably 5 to 10 years away. So.
Well, I think the bottom line is it's such a big country, and changing public policy is so complex that no one thing or person or group controls it. It's the country is going through a reassessment of what marijuana is and how big a threat it is or is not. Fortunately, we have managed over these years to ride that up from where it was a 12% support level to now 70% support level. And that's what I think about the future is people are on our side now. It's not a difficult sale.
It's 5:15. We usually plan these shows for an hour, but we keep seeming to getting these amazing guests who just have so much great stuff to share. But I don't want to keep everybody going too long. So I just want to throw it out there. Do we have any final thoughts from our honored guests?
I just wanted to quickly say what an honor it's been to be with all of you on the panel today. It's been an incredible conversation, and I am so super hopeful for the future, just having seen what all has transpired since my daughter was born 8.5 years ago until today, to see the forward motion with patients, to see how many people are living and thriving that otherwise would not be breathing the air that we're all consuming right now. It's a true testament to the work that Todd and Keith have done and have worked so hard to keep this momentum going for so very long. So I just want you to know how honored I am to be a guest. And I'm so grateful for the work that you've done, because the work that you have done has helped me heal my child in no ways that would have ever been possible, and has allowed her to have a wonderful, incredible, happy life despite being pumped full of these poisons for 6.5 years. So God bless you guys and keep up the amazing work. And I'm right here to continue doing my part alongside you.
Any other final thoughts from any of our guests before I close out here?
I would just say thank you as well. It's been a honor, and I've learned a ton. I've connected a lot of dots. You guys have pointed out a lot of really great stuff, and we're here to keep pushing with you. And again, it's been awesome to be introduced to LA Norml, and so awesome to be a part of this panel.
I'll just go ahead and echo all of that. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate welcoming a New Yorker into the group, and thank you. Thank you for all the work that you've done, and really looking forward to see what happens next.
No, it's our pleasure, man.
I'm from Connecticut, so you are more than welcome.
Yeah.
I am tri-state area here. I will represent Northeast all day. It's
Chicago here.
Culture change over here.
So we actually have a question here, guys. Maybe Keith or someone can has best knowledge on this, but it's from Marius is in our meeting here. It says, hello, everyone. Marius from Capra from Quick Med Cards here. I'm very interested in getting LA Norml's opinion on the cultural impact that the current mass legalization trend within the U.S. marijuana industry will have on the global cannabis market as a whole. Will this wave of normalization prove an example for lawmakers, starting with Western Europe all the way to Southeast Asia, eventually allowing for complete accessibility to marijuana products across the country and in the globe by 2030? Thank you for your amazing, informative event. Yeah, so anybody wants to pick that up, I mean, I don't know who's best to talk about that.
Can I make a crazy prediction?
Go ahead, Todd or Keith, yeah.
It's that we are all going to realize that phytocannabinoids are essential to our health, just like vitamins and minerals. And in the not so distant future, 5 to 10 years, you will see phytocannabinoids that don't necessarily get you high being added to food, just like we started adding vitamins and minerals to food in the 40s when we discovered that we needed it to balance our system and to avoid a lot of diseases and stuff. So you're going to see that change happen, and it's going to happen rapidly because now we're using the internet, we're communicating at the speed of light, and people are catching on a lot quicker now than they were able to in the 70s and 80s prior to this technology. So
you're 100%.
I wanted to address Marius's question. I think that America is actually going to learn from some of the other places. I'm seeing, for example, in Germany, their medical system actually allows insurance to pay for the prescriptions. And I think when we start seeing the UK and some of these other countries come forward and make some progress, it's going to blow our minds. I think it's going to be hard for America. We're used to being the trailblazer, but I think in this case, we're going to lag a little bit behind. That's my prediction.
Believe it or not,
certain medicines are allowed through the system in Germany, and in Canada, through HSAs and HRA programs, they are allowing this. And actually, I'm speaking next month on May 13th to the Los Angeles Association of Health Underwriters at their annual summit. And I'm going to be speaking on CBD and cannabis for mental health and how we can actually bring down costs for some of the pharmaceuticals by shifting some of the care over to cannabinoids. And I'm going to tell them how to do that with our patient programs and some of the systems that we have. And by the way, I spent 20 years in insurance companies. So my last job, corporate job, previously to coming into cannabis, was the sales manager for Anthem Blue Cross for the County of San Diego. So when I go speak to one of them, I'm speaking to one of them as one of them. So that's how I get in.
Well, I'm sure most of you know the doctors Knox, Janice Rachel and Jessica Knox. They actually say that if you've got access to cannabinoid therapy in as many states as we do in the United States, and you're a physician and you don't understand the endocannabinoid system, you're committing malpractice. And so the physicians need to understand that CBD actually can enhance the benzo prescriptions. Like, if they don't understand what's happening in the world with all of the Americans using CBD just willy-nilly, they are committing malpractice. We need to start having physician education as a mandate in medical schools. They don't even learn about it in medical schools still.
To underscore your point, it's 20 years now that the Dutch government has been paying for the medical cannabis that its citizens get through Bedrocan, which, we're lagging by a bit here, So yeah. You make a great point. And I think this, though, is kind of hitting a tipping point because of our understanding of the endocannabinoid system. It's so much has changed in this field since I met Keith, for instance. And really, the way that is going to shape the world's politics of cannabis can't be understated, because now with the understanding of the ECS, there's absolutely no logical argument for cannabis prohibition at all.
No, right. I could talk about this all day, but I know that Sean and I have to go. So
I know. We bring in so much amazing talent, and we can talk all day. So I'll wrap things up here, and truly, we're so honored for all of our guests that came in today to talk and share their education and their knowledge. And I'd like to remind everybody that Los Angeles Norml is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization. So we would truly appreciate any financial support that you're able to provide just to help us keep the lights on. Please do consider becoming a card-carrying member of Los Angeles Norml at only $4.20 per month to support the important work that we're doing here. And for the first 10 people that sign up today and pay for a year in advance, I'm going to mail you one of these very cool limited edition 50-year pins that says Los Angeles Norml. So we're dropping that link in the chat window now. And from everyone at Los Angeles Norml, we'd like to send a big thank you to our guest speakers, as well as to all of you in the audience that joined us here today. So peace and love to you all. Thank you so much.